The Galactic Coalition had existed for 12,000 years. It was the greatest alliance in the history of the universe. Hundreds of species lived together in peace. They shared technology. They shared knowledge. They believed that war was a thing of the past. They were wrong. Admiral stood alone in the command center of Earth's orbital defense station. She was a small woman with short black hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. The holographic display in front of her showed a map of the galaxy. Red dots were spreading across it like a disease. Each red dot was a star system that had fallen to the enemy. The Dominion had appeared from the unknown regions of space 3 years ago. Nobody knew where they came from. Nobody knew what they wanted. They only knew one thing about they came to conquer, and they did not stop. Lieutenant walked into the command center. He was young, barely 30 years old, but he carried himself like a soldier who had already lived through a war. He held a data tablet in his hands, and his face was pale. "Admiral," he said quietly, "the Coalition has sent another message." Did not turn around. She kept watching the red dots spread across the map. "Read it to me." Cleared his throat. "The has fallen. The defense fleet has been destroyed. The swarm mind has gone silent. The Coalition requests immediate military assistance from all member species. Any soldiers, any ships, any help at all." Finally turned to face him. Her expression was calm, but her eyes were hard. "How many species have answered?" "All of them, Admiral, but it is not enough. The Coalition has gathered the largest fleet in galactic history, 200,000 ships, 50 million soldiers." Paused. "They destroyed them in 6 hours." Was silent for a long moment. She walked to the window and looked out at Earth below. The blue planet turned slowly in the darkness of space. 8 billion humans lived down there. Most of them had no idea how close the war had come to their home. "What do they want from us?" she asked. "Soldiers," replied. "As many as we can send. They expect us to contribute perhaps 10,000, maybe 20,000 if we are generous." He hesitated. "Admiral, the Coalition still thinks of us as primitives. Our ships are slower than theirs. Our weapons are weaker. They do not expect much from humanity." Smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret that others did not. They have never seen humans fight a real war. She turned back to the holographic display and began typing commands. Images appeared on the screen. Training facilities. Soldiers in black armor. Ships that looked nothing like the elegant vessels of the Coalition. "The Coalition species are old," said softly. "They evolved on peaceful worlds. They developed technology before they developed war. When they fight, they stand in lines. They exchange fire. They follow rules." She pulled up more images. "Humans are different. We evolved on a death world. Everything on Earth tried to kill us. The weather, the animals, each other. We have been fighting wars for 10,000 years. We have made war into an art form." Stared at the images on the screen. He saw soldiers training in darkness. He saw them learning to kill silently. He saw them practicing techniques that had no honor in them at all. "Admiral," he said slowly, "are you suggesting we send the judgment divisions?" "I am not suggesting anything." Began typing orders into the system. "I am ordering it. Prepare the 1st through 15th Judgment Divisions for immediate deployment. 300,000 soldiers, full equipment, black operations authorization." His eyes went wide. 300,000. But the Coalition asked for 10,000 at most, and the Judgment Divisions are not regular soldiers. They are exactly what the galaxy needs right now. Finished typing and turned to face him. "The Coalition thinks war is about ships and weapons and numbers. They think it is about standing on a battlefield and dying with honor. They are wrong. War is about breaking your enemy so completely that they can never threaten you again." She walked past him toward the door. "Contact the Coalition. Tell them humanity is sending aid. Do not tell them what kind of aid. Do not tell them how many. Do not tell them anything about what is coming." "What should I tell them?" stopped at the door and looked back. Tell them that Earth has heard their call. Tell them that humanity remembers what it means to fight for survival. Tell them that we are sending soldiers. Her voice dropped to something cold and hard. But do not tell them that we are sending the judgment. She left the command center, stood alone, staring at the holographic display. The red dots continued to spread across the galaxy. They were coming, and nothing seemed able to stop them. But had read the history files. He knew what humanity had done in its past wars. He knew about the fire bombings and the nuclear weapons. He knew about the guerrilla fighters and the resistance movements. He knew about the things humans did when their backs were against the wall. The coalition had asked for soldiers. They expected warriors who would stand beside them and die with honor. They expected humans to fight the way they fought. They had no idea what was coming. On military bases across Earth and its colonies, 300,000 soldiers received their orders. They were not ordinary soldiers. They did not wear bright uniforms or carry ceremonial weapons. They wore black armor that absorbed light. They carried weapons designed for one purpose only: killing. They were the judgment divisions. They were humanity's answer to extinction. They had been trained since childhood to do the things that other species could not imagine: assassination, sabotage, psychological warfare, terror. General read his orders in his private quarters. He was an older man with gray hair and scars on his face. He had commanded the judgment divisions for 20 years. He had done terrible things in the name of humanity's survival. He would do terrible things again. He pressed a button on his communicator. All division commanders report to the main hangar in 6 hours. Full combat deployment. We are going to war. He looked out his window at the stars. Somewhere out there were burning worlds and killing billions. They thought they were the ultimate predators. They thought nothing could stop them. They had never met humans before. The galaxy had asked for soldiers. They were about to learn that humanity did not send soldiers. Humanity sent something far worse. Humanity sent the judgment. Coalition Station Meridian was the largest space station in the galaxy. It was 500 kilometers wide and held 10 million beings from 100 different species. For 12,000 years, it had been a symbol of peace and cooperation. Now it was the last line of defense against the Dominion. General stood in the main hangar bay, watching his soldiers unload from the transport ships. 300,000 men and women in black armor, moving in perfect silence. They carried no flags. They played no music. They simply marched in neat rows and waited for orders. The coalition commanders watched from a raised platform above the hangar, could feel their eyes on him. He could feel their disappointment. The High Commander was a being made of living crystal and light. Its body shifted through colors as it spoke. "These are your soldiers," it asked through a translation device. "They carry no energy shields. Their armor is made of metal alloys. This is primitive technology. They will die in seconds against plasma weapons." "Some of them will die," agreed calmly. The battle chief was a massive creature, 3 meters tall with 4 arms and skin like stone. It growled deep in its throat. "You send your own people to die for nothing. Where is the honor in this? Where is the courage?" Turn to face them. He was a small man compared to these aliens. He had no crystal body or stone skin. He had only his scars and his experience and his knowledge of what humans could do. "You asked for soldiers," he said. "You expected us to fight the way you fight, stand in lines, exchange fire, die with dignity." He smiled, and several aliens stepped backward without knowing why. "Humans do not fight wars, we end them." He raised his hand and made a signal. Captain stepped forward. She was a young woman with a scar running down the left side of her face. She commanded the Special Operations Division, 3,000 soldiers trained in the darkest arts of human warfare. "Show them," ordered. Activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air above them. Maps, supply routes, enemy positions, communication networks. "They are coming to this sector in 12 days," she said. Her voice was flat and professional. "They have a fleet of 50,000 ships. They have an army of 10 million soldiers. They have never lost a battle." The coalition commanders nodded. They knew all this already. It was why they were so afraid. "You plan to meet them here," continued. "You will gather your ships. You will form battle lines. You will fight with honor and courage. And you will lose. All of you will die, and they will continue their conquest." The commander flickered with anger. "Then what do you suggest, human? Do you have some secret weapon, some technology we do not know about?" "No," said. "We have something better. We have 10,000 years of learning how to kill." She changed the display. Now it showed the supply lines. Long chains of fuel depots and ammunition stations stretching across 4 star systems. "The fleet needs fuel," she said. "Without fuel, their ships cannot move. In 3 days, we will destroy every fuel depot in their supply chain, not with ships, not with battles, with 12 teams of 50 soldiers each, inserting quietly and destroying everything." She changed the display again. Now it showed the command structure, hundreds of commanders controlling the massive fleet. "They depend on their commanders," she continued. "Their soldiers do not think for themselves. They follow orders. In 5 days, we will kill every commander above the rank of captain. We will do it silently, in their sleep, in their private quarters. We will leave no evidence except the bodies." The battle chief made a sound of disgust. "This is not war. This is murder. This is the work of cowards who are afraid to fight." Stepped forward. His voice was still calm, but there was something dangerous in his eyes now. "Cowards, let me tell you about human history, battle chief. Let me tell you what cowards do." He took control of the display. Images appeared, old images from Earth's past. "This is a city called Hiroshima. 100,000 humans lived there. In 1 second they all died. A single weapon dropped from a single aircraft. That is how humans fight when they are desperate." He showed more images. Burned cities, destroyed nations, mass graves. "This is what humans do when someone threatens our survival. We do not care about honor. We do not care about rules. We care about winning. We care about making sure our enemy can never threaten us again." He turned off the display. The hangar was silent. Every alien was staring at him. "They think they are predators," said softly. "They think they are the most dangerous species in the galaxy. They have never met humans before. They do not know what we are. They do not know what we have done to each other for 10,000 years." He looked at the coalition commanders one by one. "You asked for soldiers. You wanted warriors who would stand beside you and die with glory. That is not what we are. We are the thing that other species have nightmares about. We are the darkness that waits at the edge of civilization." He turned and walked toward his soldiers, followed him. "Wait," the commander called out. "What are you going to do? What is your plan?" "Did not turn around. In 12 days the fleet will arrive here. They will find their fuel gone, their commanders dead, their communications destroyed, their soldiers starving and confused." He stopped at the edge of the platform and looked back. "And then we will show them what humanity really is. We will show them the judgment." He jumped down to the hangar floor and disappeared among his soldiers. The coalition commanders stood in silence, watching the humans prepare for war. They had asked for help. They had expected soldiers. They had received something else entirely. Below them, Captain was already organizing her teams. Infiltration specialists were studying ship designs. Assassination experts were memorizing commander profiles. Sabotage units were preparing their equipment. In 3 days, the real war would begin. Not a war of ships and battles, a war of shadows and silence and terror. They had no idea what was coming. Neither did the coalition. Only the humans knew, and they were smiling. The flagship was called the Destroyer of Worlds. It was 3 kilometers long and carried enough weapons to burn a planet to ash. 10,000 warriors lived inside it. They were the elite of the elite, the personal guard of Fleet Commander, the most feared military leader in the Dominion. Sargent floated in the darkness of space, watching the massive ship through the visor of her helmet. She was alone. Her team of 12 soldiers was scattered around her, invisible against the black background of the universe. They had been floating here for 6 hours. Their suits had no power signatures. Their bodies were cold, matching the temperature of space. To any sensor, they were just debris, just dead metal drifting in the void. Team 2, report, she whispered into her communicator. In position, the voice was barely audible, ready to breach. Team 3. Ready. Checked her equipment one more time. A blade made of special metal that could cut through armor, a small pistol with a silencer, explosives, poison, everything she needed to kill. All teams, she said softly, begin insertion. They moved together, 12 shadows gliding toward the massive ship. They found an airlock on the lower hull, far from the main sensors. One of her soldiers, a young man named, attached a device to the door. It took him 30 seconds to hack the security system. The door opened without a sound. Inside, the ship was warm and dark, the light low light. They could see in near total darkness, but humans had technology to match. Visor switched to night vision, and the corridor appeared in shades of green. They moved through the ship like ghosts. They had built their vessel for war, not for security against infiltration. They had never needed to worry about enemies inside their ships. Nobody had ever gotten inside before. Nobody except humans. Led her team through ventilation shafts and maintenance tunnels. They passed sleeping quarters where warriors snored in their bunks. They passed armories filled with plasma weapons. They passed the engine room where technicians monitored the ship's power systems. They killed no one, not yet. Their mission was not to fight. Their mission was to reach the command deck. It took them 3 hours to get there. 3 hours of crawling through tight spaces. 3 hours of freezing every time a patrol walked past. 3 hours of controlling their breathing and their heartbeats and their fear. Finally, they reached the commander's quarters. 2 elite guards stood outside the door. They were massive creatures, nearly 2.5 meters tall, covered in natural armor. Each one carried a plasma rifle that could vaporize a human in a single shot. Made a hand signal, and another soldier, a woman named, moved forward. They attacked from the shadows. No sound, no warning, just 2 blades finding the gaps in armor. The guards fell without making a noise. Their bodies were dragged into the darkness. Approached the door. She placed her hand on the control panel. It scanned her palm, found no DNA, and refused to open. She smiled. Then she used the dead guard's hand instead. The door slid open. Fleet Commander was asleep in his bed. He was the largest that had ever seen. His body was covered with scars from 100 battles. His claws had killed thousands of enemies. His name was spoken with fear across the galaxy. He woke up when sat down in his chair. For a moment he just stared at her. A tiny human female sitting in his personal quarters, cleaning blood from her blade. His guards were gone. His security systems had not made a sound. He reached for his weapon. It was not there. Looking for this, held up his plasma pistol. She had taken it from his bedside table while he was still waking up. Impressive weapon, very powerful, very loud. You will not need it. Rose from his bed slowly. He was still dangerous, even unarmed. His claws could tear through metal. His teeth could crush bone. He had killed enemies with his bare hands many times. "How did you get in here?" he demanded. "We walked in," said simply. "Your ship is not designed to keep out enemies who do not fight like enemies. You expected attacks from outside. You never expected us to be inside." "What do you want?" Placed a small holographic device on his desk. She pressed a button. The device activated, showing dozens of video feeds from ships across the fleet. On every feed, the same scene played out. Commanders waking up to find human soldiers in their rooms. Some were already dead. Some were being killed as watched. Some, like him, were having conversations with small, strange creatures who had somehow bypassed every security system in the Dominion. "Your fleet will arrive at Coalition Station Meridian in 9 days," said calmly, "but you will not be leading them. Neither will your second in command, or your third, or your fourth." She stood up and walked toward the door. "Tonight we visited every command ship in your armada. Same message, same result." Watched the feeds in horror. His commanders were dying. His fleet was being decapitated, and the humans were doing it without firing a single shot. "You are monsters," he whispered. Stopped at the door and looked back at him. "No, we are humans. We have been killing each other for 10,000 years. We have made it into an art," she smiled. It was not a kind smile. The galaxy asked for soldiers. They should have asked what kind. She pressed a button on her wrist. The lights in the room went out. When they came back on a second later, she was gone. Ran to the door. His guards were dead on the floor. The corridors were empty. The human had vanished like smoke. He activated the ship's alarm. Soldiers came running. They searched every deck, every room, every ventilation shaft. They found nothing. The humans had disappeared completely. But they had left something behind. On the walls of every corridor, words had been carved in script. The same message, repeated over and over. "We are already here." Stood in the middle of his ship, surrounded by his warriors, and for the first time in his life, he felt something he had never felt before. Fear. The humans had been on his ship for hours. They could have killed him at any time. They chose not to. They wanted him to live. They wanted him to see. They wanted him to understand. This was not a war. This was a message. And the message was clear. The judgment had come. 9 days had passed since the infiltration of the fleet. 9 days of chaos and confusion. 9 days of commanders dying in their sleep. 9 days of fuel depots exploding across 4 star systems. 9 days of terror. Now the fleet finally arrived at Coalition Station Meridian. 40,000 ships instead of 50,000. Many of them were running low on fuel. Many of them had no commanders left. Many of them were filled with soldiers who had not slept properly in over a week. Commander stood in the Coalition war room, watching the enemy fleet approach on the main display. She was a tall woman with sharp features and cold eyes. She had commanded human ground forces for 15 years. She had never lost a battle. Around her, Coalition commanders were panicking. The flickered with fear. They were growling and packing. The other species were talking over each other, arguing about strategies and formations. "Silence," said calmly. Everyone stopped and looked at her. "The enemy fleet is damaged but still dangerous," she continued. "They still outnumber us 3 to 1. They still have millions of soldiers. They are angry and desperate. That makes them unpredictable." The battle chief stepped forward. "Then we should prepare for battle, form our lines, charge our weapons, die with honor." "No," turned back to the display. "We will not fight their fleet, not directly. We will let them come to us, and then we will destroy them." "How?" the commander demanded. "Our ships are weaker, our weapons are slower. How can we defeat them?" Smiled. It was the same smile that General had shown them 9 days ago. The same smile that made aliens uncomfortable without knowing why. "Watch," she said. The fleet entered weapons range. Their lead ships opened fire. Plasma beams and missiles streaked toward the Coalition station. And then the flagship exploded. It happened without warning. One moment, the massive ship was leading the attack. The next moment, it was a ball of fire and debris. The explosion was so large that it destroyed 3 other ships nearby. "What happened?" they demanded. "We planted explosives on that ship 9 days ago," explained calmly. "We planted explosives on all their major ships. We have been waiting for the right moment to activate them." More explosions ripped through the fleet. Command ships, fuel carriers, ammunition vessels. One after another, they tore themselves apart from the inside. The formation broke. Ships scattered in all directions. Some tried to flee. Some fired wildly at anything that moved. Some crashed into each other as their panicked crews made fatal mistakes. "They are shooting at their own ships," the commander whispered in disbelief. "Yes," agreed. "We have been sending false communications for the past week. We have been making them suspicious of each other. We have been telling different commanders that other commanders are traitors. Now they do not know who to trust." Specialist, her communications officer, looked up from his station. "Commander, the ground forces are beginning their assault on the third moon. 10 million soldiers approaching our positions." Nodded. "Good. Tell Sergeant to begin Phase 3. On the surface of Meridian's third moon, 10 million soldiers marched toward the coalition defensive lines. They were the largest ground force ever assembled in galactic history. They had conquered 100 worlds. They had never been defeated. Sergeant watched them approach from her hidden position. She had been here for 3 days, buried under the rocky surface with 50 of her best soldiers. They had not moved. They had not eaten. They had barely breathed. They were invisible. "Wait," she whispered to her team. "Wait until they pass." The army marched past her position. Millions of soldiers walking in neat formations. They did not look down. They did not check the ground beneath their feet. They expected the enemy to be in front of them, not behind them. When the last soldiers had passed, gave the signal. "Now!" Her team emerged from the ground like ghosts rising from graves. They moved through the rear of the army, killing supply officers and communication specialists. They destroyed ammunition carts. They set fire to food supplies. They poisoned water tanks. The soldiers at the front of the army had no idea what was happening behind them. They kept marching forward, expecting to meet the coalition forces in battle. Instead, they found empty trenches and abandoned positions. The coalition forces had retreated. There was no one to fight. But there was no food to eat either, no water to drink, no ammunition to reload. The army was stranded on an empty moon with nothing to sustain them. And behind them in the shadows, the humans were still killing. Commander watched the reports come in. The fleet was destroying itself in space. The army was starving on the ground, and human soldiers were everywhere, invisible and deadly, striking from the darkness and disappearing before anyone could react. "This is not war," the commander said again. Its crystal body was dim with shock. "This is slaughter." "No," replied. "This is survival. This is what humans do when someone threatens our existence. We do not fight for glory. We do not fight for honor. We fight to win. We fight until our enemy can never threaten us again." She pulled up a new display. It showed the remaining commanders on their ships. Most of them were dead. The few who survived were surrounded by human soldiers, their weapons taken away, their guards killed silently. "In 1 hour I will give them a chance to surrender," continued. "If they refuse, we will continue until there are no left to surrender. The choice is theirs." The coalition commanders stood in silence. They had wanted a battle. They had expected ships and weapons and glorious combat. Instead, they had watched an enemy army of millions be defeated without a single traditional fight. Below them, on the moon's surface, Sergeant led her team through the confused forces. They did not attack the regular soldiers. They only killed the officers. They only destroyed the supplies. They only created chaos. The soldiers began to surrender, not because they were defeated in battle, because they were hungry, because they were afraid, because they did not know where the enemy was or when the next attack would come. By morning, it was over. The greatest military force in galactic history had been broken in less than 12 hours, not by a larger army, not by superior technology, by 300,000 humans who refused to fight fair. Commander stood at the window, watching the fires burn on the moon's surface. Behind her, the coalition commanders were silent. They had asked for soldiers. They had received something else entirely. They had received the judgment. And they would never see war the same way again. The war was over. Admiral stood in the great hall of Coalition Station Meridian, surrounded by representatives from 100 species. The room was silent. No one spoke. No one moved. They were all waiting for what would happen next. Across the table from her sat the new Supreme Leader. He was the fourth to hold that title in the past 2 weeks. The first 3 had been killed by human soldiers in their sleep. This one had survived only because the humans had allowed him to survive. His name he was younger than the previous leaders, and there was something in his eyes that the others had not possessed. Fear. Real, genuine fear. "You requested this meeting," said calmly. "Speak." Looked at the human woman in front of him. She was small, fragile-looking. She had no claws, no armor, no natural weapons of any kind. And yet she had destroyed the greatest military force in the galaxy. "We surrender," he said. His voice was quiet, defeated. "The Dominion accepts all terms. We will withdraw from all conquered territories. We will pay reparations. We will do whatever you demand." Nodded slowly. "That is a good start, but it is not enough." His eyes widened. "What more do you want? We have given you everything. We have admitted defeat. What else is there?" "You came to this galaxy to conquer," replied. "You killed billions of beings. You destroyed civilizations that had existed for thousands of years. You did this because you believed you were predators. You believed you were the strongest. You believed no one could stop you." She leaned forward, and her eyes were hard as stone. "You were wrong. There is always something stronger. There is always something more dangerous. And now you know what that something is." General stepped forward. He placed a data tablet on the table in front of. "This is a list of your war crimes. Every planet you burned. Every species you enslaved. Every atrocity you committed." Looked at the list. It went on for hundreds of pages. "You will answer for all of this," continued. "Your leaders will stand trial. Your soldiers will face justice. Your species will learn what happens when you threaten the galaxy." The Supreme Leader was silent for a long moment. Then he looked up at the humans with something like confusion in his eyes. "I do not understand," he said slowly. "You defeated us. You could have killed all of us. You could have destroyed you could have ended our species forever. Why did you not do this?" Exchanged a look with. It was a question they had expected. "Because that is not who we are," she said quietly. "But you are monsters," protested. "You killed our commanders in their sleep. You destroyed our supplies. You broke our army without honor. You are worse than anything we have ever faced." "Yes," agreed. "We are capable of terrible things. We have done terrible things to each other throughout our history. We know how to destroy. We know how to kill. We know how to break our enemies completely." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was softer. "But we also know when to stop. We fight to protect, not to conquer. We kill to survive, not for pleasure. We broke your army because it was necessary. We did not destroy your species because it was not necessary." Stared at her. He had fought wars his entire life. He had never met an enemy like this. An enemy that could be utterly ruthless and utterly merciful at the same time. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now you go home," replied. "You rebuild your civilization. You teach your children what happened here. You make sure they understand that the galaxy is not for conquering. And if you ever threaten anyone again—" She let the sentence hang in the air. Nodded slowly. He understood. The humans had shown him exactly what they were capable of. They had broken his entire military without fighting a single traditional battle. If they ever attacked again, the humans would not stop at breaking the army. They would break everything. The delegation left the room, walked past rows of human soldiers standing at attention. They were small, quiet, unremarkable looking. But he knew now what they were capable of. He would never forget. After they were gone, the coalition commanders gathered around Admiral. The High Commander was the first to speak. "You have saved us," it said. Its crystal body glowed with gratitude. "You have saved the entire galaxy. We are in your debt." "Yes," agreed simply, "you are." The battle chief stepped forward. Its massive form towered over the human woman, but it no longer looked at her with contempt. It looked at her with respect. "I called your soldiers cowards," it rumbled. "I said they had no honor. I was wrong. What they did, it was not the way of the, but it was effective. It saved millions of lives, perhaps billions." Nodded. "Honor is a luxury. They did not give us the choice to fight with honor. They came to destroy everything. We responded in kind." The coalition commanders were silent. They were beginning to understand something important, something that changed everything. For 12,000 years, they had believed that war was a game, a ritual with rules and customs. They had built elegant ships and trained honorable warriors. They had never faced an enemy that did not play by the rules. Humans did not play by the rules. Humans did whatever was necessary to survive, and now the galaxy knew it. Captain approached after the meeting ended. "The coalition is afraid of us now," she said quietly. "Good," replied. "Fear keeps people alive. Fear makes them think twice before starting wars. Fear is what will keep this galaxy peaceful for the next 1,000 years. And if someone forgets, if someone decides to test us again." Looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there they were retreating to there. Somewhere out there, other species were watching and learning and remembering. "Then we remind them," she said simply. "We send the judgment again, and we break them too." She turned away from the window. Sargent was waiting at the door with her team. They were tired. They had not slept in days, but they were smiling. "Good work," told them. "All of you, you did what needed to be done." Nodded. "What happens now, Admiral? Do we go home?" "For now, rest, recover. Spend time with your families." Paused. "But stay ready. The galaxy knows what we are now. Most will remember, some will forget, and when they forget, we remind them." Finished. "Exactly." The human soldiers filed out of the station and returned to their ships. The war was over. The enemy was defeated. The galaxy was saved. But nothing would ever be the same. The coalition had asked for soldiers. They had expected warriors, protectors, heroes who would die gloriously in battle. Instead, they got humans, creatures who had evolved on a death world, creatures who had spent 10,000 years learning how to kill, creatures who could be the most dangerous thing in the universe when threatened. The galaxy would remember this lesson. The galaxy would tell stories about the day the humans came, the day the judgment arrived. And for the next 1,000 years, whenever a species thought about starting a war, they would remember one simple truth. Do not threaten humanity. Because humanity does not send soldiers. Humanity sends the judgment. And the judgment does not lose.